Hi, this video is going to show you how to find the circumference of a circle. Here's some important things to remember. The circumference of a circle is its perimeter. So, looking at this circle, the perimeter or the circumference of the circle is the distance around the outside. The circumference is always 3.14 times larger than its diameter. And 3.14 is rounding off pi. So a long time ago, mathematicians discovered by trying with different size circles that by measuring with some string around the outside, the circumference or the perimeter of the circle, it was always pi times larger than its diameter. So they then discovered two different ways to find the circumference of a circle without having to measure the distance around the outside. So, if you are given the diameter of a circle, you can then work it out. So if you're giving the diameter of a circle, the circumference is then equal to pi times by the diameter, where pi is equal to 3.14. That is rounding pi off because pi is an irrational number, meaning that the decimal here keeps going on forever. There is no pattern in the decimals of pi. So that's one way, because the circumference of a circle, the distance around, the c, is pi times larger than the diameter. So pi times by the diameter. The diameter is the distance from one side of the circle to another going through the center of the circle. The second way to work it out is the formula you will see on the right-hand side of the screen. You'll notice that both circles are labelled with something called the radius, and the radius is just half of the diameter. So the radius is the distance from the center of the circle to any point on the outside of the circle. Okay, so you can see the radius clearly in both of these, half of the diameter. So if you're given the radius, you can then also work out the circumference of a circle. Because it is half the size, then the circumference is going to be equal to 2 times pi, or 3.14, times by the radius. You might be able to notice the connection that 2 times by the radius, or r here, would give you the diameter of this circle, the whole distance across. So you could also do pi times the diameter if you're given the radius, just by doubling the radius. Let's have a look at some examples. Let's now find the circumference of this circle, or the perimeter, the distance around the outside. We're given the radius, so we could use the formula. The circumference is equal to 2 pi r, or 2 times by pi times by the radius. Let's now substitute some values back into that. That's going to be equal to 2 multiplied by pi. We know pi is an irrational decimal, so we're going to just round pi to 3.14. Then we're going to multiply that by the radius. So the radius here is 10 meters. For some of these types of questions where you start to use pi, you might need to use a calculator. But for this one, I don't. I could use a calculator, but I don't need to, because I know 2 times 3.14 is 6.28, and then that's times by 10. And then 6.28 times by 10 is going to give me 62.8. Remember, this is a measurement question. So this is 62.8 meters. So the circumference, the distance around of this circle, not drawn to scale, would be 62.8 meters. The measurement's important. You could have also used the formula for this one, pi times by diameter. You could simply just double the radius to give you a diameter of 20 meters right across the circle running through the center. So the circumference would be equal to 3.14 times by the diameter of 20. That will also, whether you worked it out in your head, on paper, or with a calculator, give you an answer of 62.8 meters. For this circle, to find its circumference or its perimeter, distance around the outside, we've been given its diameter. So let's use the circumference is equal to pi times by diameter. We know pi is approximately 3.14, and if we times it by the diameter, the distance across the circle, that is 15 centimeters. This one again might be slightly more challenging. You could work this out in your head because 15 is sort of a friendly number, or you can plug in 3.14 times by 15 onto your calculator to give you 47.1 centimeters. You could also still use with 3.14 times by 15 a box or a lattice or an algorithm method as well if you didn't have a calculator handy. Same thing, you could also use though, the circumference is equal to 2 pi r, or 2 times pi times the radius. You would just need to then halve the diameter, which will give you a radius of 7.5 centimeters. So that would make it 2 times by pi, which is approximately 3.14, times by 7.5 centimeters. You can see that I'll give you 6.28 times by 7.5 centimeters. All I did there was do 2 times by pi, or 2 times by 3.14, which gave me 6.28. You can see that I'm given a decimal multiplication problem. Again, very realistic, you can work this out with paper, but happy for these ones to be done on a calculator. 6.28 times by 7.5 is equal to, funnily enough, 47.1, and that is centimeters. Again, being a measure of distance, it is of utmost importance that you are writing your units. Good luck in trying to find the circumference or perimeter of circles. Remember, the two formulas you can use are pi times by the diameter, or 2 times by pi times by the radius, where the diameter is the distance across the circle going through the center, and the radius is the distance from the center of the circle to anywhere on the outside of the circle.